It's the Last Stand Podcast. And here's your host, Brian Custer.
That's right. It is the Last Stand. I am Brian Custer. We bring you the biggest names in sports, entertainment. And I tell you what, we got a big one here. And he comes from the sport of football, the NFL. Six-time Pro Bowler, spent 15 years in the NFL. Third in receiving yards. He's a Hall of Famer. Folks, get your popcorn ready. He's none other than Terrell Owens. T.O., welcome to the Last Stand.
I'm good, man. Terrell Owens.
Terrell, what's up?
Welcome. You started out good. You started out
right. T.O., let's ask you, first of all, how are you doing? Because I saw you made news quite recently because you said it's scary in these times right now being a black man. Expound on that.
First of all, I'm doing good. And also, yeah, I think, when I say scared, I'm not like, I'm not just walking around looking over my shoulders left and right. But when you think about, now I have kids and being just a black person in America right now, it's difficult to really stomach and watch what's been happening. Obviously, especially with as recent as obviously the Jacob Blake shooting, 7 shots to the back. Prior to that, the guy in Atlanta, and then prior to that, and which had really just got this movement going, is the death of George Floyd. And honestly, again, man, I have kids, girls and boys. I've already had conversations with most of them to really just, again, have that conversation about, if they ever get stopped and what's going on in America right now, because, again, it's not something that they can hide from. When you talk about a pandemic, social injustice, social racial inequality, this is a pandemic that's been going on for the black race for some time now. But, yeah, like I said, I mean, I'm not looking over my shoulders, scared, but, just understanding that my kids, they could be one of those people that I've mentioned. You think about Breonna Taylor, being killed with a no-knock warrant. Those cops shooting blindly into an apartment. Man, this is a scary time to be a Black American, period. Because when you think about even the deaths since May 25th, when George Floyd got killed, it's like we're getting killed at an alarming rate. So that's my sentiments. That's my thoughts on that.
We've seen how the NBA tried to use their social activism, especially wearing the shirts, responding in interviews and things. And now all of a sudden the NFL looks like it is coming around. What do you think NFL players' responsibility is to this movement?
I think unifying, getting together. If they can gain anything from what the NBA players are doing and have done, that's developing a brotherhood, especially those guys of color, those black and brown guys that make up the National Football League, and it's over 70%. They have to understand the leverage in which they have, and I think a lot of these guys, they're selfish in a number of ways because they're looking at the dollar amount, the amount of money that they feel like they may lose if they go out and stand in the forefront of something such as this, such as standing up, for yourself, standing up for the Black community, the Black race, because I think everybody is scared to lose their job, just as Colin Kaepernick did. And I think they have to be educated in really knowing how they can use their voice, how powerful their voices are. They have to understand that if they unify, just like those NBA players are doing, stand together against those owners, not only just for these social causes, but just the causes that they want, demands that they want. And I feel like that's needed in the National Football League. When you talk about the amount of money generated with the National Football League versus basketball and baseball combined, it's $1 billion industry. NFL generates that much money to where they can guarantee these players contracts. And obviously that's a little bit different than the social causes, but this is what I'm talking about. If these guys, these black players, understand the leverage that they have and understand the components that are involved and how they can put these owners pretty much backs against the wall, they can get what they want.
Terrell, do you believe the NFL and its owners will be more accepting this season of their players' social activism and allowing them to express it more freely?
Yes, but considering the climate that we're in, I don't think that you're going to see any owners come out and have pushback. They're not going to come out and publicly say that they're not for it. Sometimes silence speaks volumes. When you think about, owners in positions of power, namely and notably Jerry Jones. When you think about guys that have come out and said that have questioned why he hasn't come out and said anything, towards, toward this movement, toward the any actions that have been displayed across the country. And as I said, sometimes silence speaks volumes. When you think about some of the players that have played for Jerry Jones, you think of Michael Irvin, the black players for that matter, the Leon Letts, the Emmitt Smith. I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised that these guys haven't spoken up against the fact that he hasn't said anything. But I get it. I understand that these guys have, I guess, showing some type of loyalty toward Jerry Jones, because I'm sure Jerry Jones have helped them along the way, have gotten them out of trouble, obviously have paid them millions of dollars. At the end of the day, when you look at Jerry Jones and the power that and the position that he's in, I think some of these players are starting to realize, like, yeah, he could be part of the problem, just the fact that he hasn't said anything. When you talk about Black Lives Matter, for me, how I look at it and how I think Jerry Jones look at Black Lives is Black Lives only matter unless they're doing something for him. They're winning championships or they're winning ball games for him. They're putting money and putting people in the seats in that stadium, generating money to fund to pay for that $1 billion stadium. That's what I see, is that Black lives only matter when it's benefiting him.
And, he had taken a lot of criticism for being silent, especially in light of the death of George Floyd. And when he was pressed about whether or not allowing his players to kneel during the national anthem, his response was grace. That grace for me, grace for everyone, that should be the answer for everything. Let's just have grace with one another and their opinions on these stances. What did you take from that?
I think that was a cop-out. I think that was a safe answer. He didn't really identify or didn't really answer, I think, the questions or any of the issues that is going on in the country right now. As I said, sometimes silence speaks volumes, and the fact that he didn't address it, I think, directly, I think it says a lot. And again, like I said, I'm shocked, but I'm not really shocked that guys like Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith, guys, especially these African American, these black guys that have players that have played for Jerry, and understanding the lives, especially the black race that is, like I said, we're being killed at an alarming rate. Again, some of these guys, like I said, they have powerful voices. They have platforms. I don't care how much money a guy's paid me, especially if it's a white guy or any other guy. But if you feel like someone is really being insensitive, I think, to what's going on, regardless of if he was your owner or whatever the case may be, then I'm going to speak out. I'm going to address the issue, because at the end of the day, money's not going to, you're not going to go to the grave with any amount of money. I think if anything, you're going to go to the grave with your dignity, your character. And I think for me, those guys not saying anything, speaking out on behalf of the Black community, it says a lot about them as well.
And I'm sure when guys, especially even those guys, when they see this, they may say, wait, who are you to tell us what we have? You don't know what we've been doing. What would be your response? I'm sure when they hear this.
I mean, it's been 4 or 5 months. It's been 4 or 5 months. And what are you doing? I mean, you can't be doing anything greater than the NBA is doing behind closed doors to where it's not visible. Yeah, if you're doing something behind closed doors, at least, like I said, make it let it be known. But again, it's been 4 or 5 months since the death of George Floyd, and it's been a couple of others since then. So that's for me. Like I said, if they want to come with a statement, some rebuttal such as that, like I said, actions speak louder than words to me.
Let's talk about some football because this is right in your wheelhouse. So much movement in the offseason. Cam to the Patriots, Tom Brady to the Buccaneers. What about the Super Bowl this year? Who do you see? Powerhouse? Is there a powerhouse? AFC, NFC? Who do you see in the big game?
I think the moves that you mentioned, I think it offers some parity within both divisions, within the league, for that matters. Obviously, I mean, you have the Super Bowl champions in the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. Obviously, I think when you look at the AFC, they're the favorites. Out of the NFC, I think it's a toss-up. I don't think anybody really stands out in my mind right now. So again, like I said, there's a lot of parity going into this year, with also the uncertainty about the entirety of the season. So we just got to figure out, see how it starts and how it ends.
Do you like the current state of the game and the current NFL, where there's obviously a big emphasis on scoring, the receiver, the position that you played very well, and all of a sudden the running back, they've kind of de-emphasized the running back in the running game. Do you like the current state of the game?
I do. I think with how the running backs are being used now, they're being used as hybrids in a sense. I think when you can have a running back that offers that versatility, that's able to carry the rock, like I said, it may not be 20, 30, 40 carries, but I think on an average, maybe 15 to 20 carries a game, and obviously insert themselves into the pass game to really kind of offset, depending on the offense, depending on the coach and the team. But yeah, you look at the inflation of numbers over the last probably like 5 to 10 years. Obviously, you see that there's the ball is being thrown a lot more down the field. So when you look at the totality, again, you look at the number of guys whose stats have really just has risen over the course of the years. Obviously, it's due to the style of play. But being a receiver, I would welcome that, especially getting the number of targets that some of these guys get. You look at when Calvin Johnson left, I think he was, first 2,000 receiving yards or what have you. That's remarkable in itself. But when you think about the receivers that's playing the game today, you think about the Julio Joneses, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams. These are guys, Michael Thomas. These are guys that has a catch radius and can do a lot of things with run after catch.
When you retired, I mean, listen, you're already third. You're still third in receiving yards. You were third in catches. I mean, you were right up there when you retired. What kind of numbers would T.O. put up in this NFL?
If I was given the opportunity to play right now, full season, I definitely feel that I would. I mean, obviously not playing 75, snaps, but I could definitely be a valuable contributing factor, an option on a team. I would say
even today.
I would definitely, yeah, absolutely. 800 to 1,000 yards for sure. When you talk about how I can be utilized depending on the scheme, the coach, or what have you, a coach understanding what I'm capable of doing. third down situation. You think about red zone. You think about who's their number one, who's their number two. The tight end situation. Those are the type of plays that I feel like I would be able to thrive on.
And what about in your prime? What kind of numbers, if you
Oh
were
my
in,
gosh.
if you were in your prime and the state of the game is like it is now, what kind of numbers would T.O. put up?
I'm easily knocking at the door at 2,000 yards. Easily. Especially like I said, with the number of targets and with how these guys, these quarterbacks are throwing the ball, being a vital part, being the number one receiver, being able to again not take a lot of hits, just being able to play free. So again, that in itself enables a receiver obviously to have more run after catch, being able to take advantage of defenses that can't hit defenseless receivers.
Let's talk about a guy who I was reading had been compared to you because of, they said, talented, yet all seems to have a mercurial personality and issues with his team, and Antonio Brown. What advice would you give him if you could talk to him?
I mean, I've talked to Antonio, and for whatever reason, I kind of knew when we spoke, and when I addressed him, I was like, yo, you may not talk to me after this or what have you, but understanding kind of what he was going through, what I've been through, and me speaking and coming from a place of wisdom, I had those conversations with him to really just sometimes you kind of just take some steps back. Obviously, there are some things that were, being revealed through social media or what have you. And some of those personal things obviously should be kept in house. I understood. We talked a couple of times about some of the things that happened there in Pittsburgh. I gave him my advice as far as, how to address those depending on what he asked me. Obviously, with the relationship that he had, I will say that I felt that with him being there in Pittsburgh, I guess around like 8-9 years, he should have the comfort level to be able to talk to Ben Roethlisberger man to man. And obviously the fact that he was, asking for my advice at how to approach that situation let me know that there was a lot of tension there and he wasn't as comfortable as one would think, being that they had spent, so many years together in the locker room, going through the grind of training camps. This is where, again, he's his number one receiver. That's his number one QB. So, again, when you have two guys in an organization under that one roof and they can't really communicate man to man or, outside of that locker room to address issues, then there's a problem. But I think first and foremost, Antonio obviously has to do what's best for Antonio Brown and his family. All the other stuff is the extra stuff. I think, it comes with growth. It's a maturation process. I think we all go through it. I'm sure maybe he'll look back and see how he could have handled a lot or some of those things differently. But at the end of the day, I came from a genuine place when I offered my advice. And I mentioned, I was like, yo, we may not be friends after this, but afterwards. But I gave him my honest opinion, and he took it for what it was. And like I said, I haven't talked to Antonio really since then.
When you look at today's NFL and especially the receivers today, which one most resembles T.O.?
Probably Julio Jones. When you think about, the catch radius and really kind of what he does with and without the football. Obviously, I would definitely say his catch radius is far greater than mine ever was. But when you talk about the speed, just how he attacks the ball, what happens once he gets the ball in his hands, and just being able to run every route in the route tree and being that viable option. When you think about and go back to the Super Bowl that they were winning but ultimately eventually lost, he's a guy that's a go-to guy. You got to keep keep going to the well until the end. As we saw, you can't leave any time on the clock with any team, especially with any quarterback like Tom Brady. That came back to haunt him. When you have a guy like Julio Jones and he's eating, he can't be stopped. You feed him till he can't get enough. It's just like playing basketball. When a guy's hot, you keep going to him until he cools off.
One guy who's taken a lot of criticism of late, obviously because he got injured, didn't have the season that he had in the past, was Odell Beckham. And you have talked about that. The criticism of Odell Beckham isn't fair. Tell us why.
Because I think when you look at, numbers or what have you, number one, the best ability that anybody can have is availability. And obviously he was hurt this past year. I'm sure leaving Giants organization, he wanted to go to the Cleveland Browns and really show what type of receiver that he is, and build on what he had built there in that blue and white and red uniform with the New York Giants. But when you look at statistics, sometimes they can be misleading, especially from a fan perspective, or when analysts are breaking down film and obviously you see the highlights, this and that and the other, and you see that during a game, Antonio Brown maybe had say 50 to 80 yards or somewhere around there, and he caught only 2 balls, and it was out of 10, you know what I mean? But some of those balls may not have been catchable, you know what I mean? But that's going to be a direct reflection on his stats and what he didn't do. They're not going to take into account if the analyst or the commentator is not breaking it down and really giving you the facts of why he was caught 2 balls out of 10 targets, or 2 or 5 out of 15. They're not going to break it down and really be forthcoming and transparent as to what happened to the other targets that he missed or wasn't caught. And so that's why I say that sometimes it's unfair. And you look at the numbers, and obviously they're down from a year prior. That's because, number one, injuries. Again, a lot has to factor into his quarterback. He's only as good as his quarterback, and no knock on Baker Mayfield. He as a quarterback has to be better at ball placement, things of that nature, which factors into a receiver's production.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about you in your football career. So, 2 years ago, man, long overdue, they finally vote you into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You became the first Hall of Famer, though, to skip your own induction ceremony. You held your own ceremony, of course, at your alma mater at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. Tell us why.
I just felt like, according to the criteria, the mission statement, in which the Hall of Fame embodies, I think when you talk about the criteria, I checked all those boxes in 2 years. I don't get inducted, and they have guys that far less statistically, they just weren't up there, and they get in before me. So when you think about systemic racism, I'm sure we've talked to touch on that. I think, again, that plays a part in it too. When you look at the writers and the voters that ultimately induct guys into the Hall of Fame, I think they've added maybe 1 or 2 more African American guys. I think out of the 46 guys that vote, select guys to get into the Hall of Fame, I think maybe three out of the 46 or 48 are African Americans. So that's well over 90%. So I think I fell victim to that. But at the end of the day, I felt like my body of work spoke for itself. When you're at that time number 2 and number 3 all time behind the greatest receiver of all time, in Jerry Rice, of whom I got the pleasure of playing with for about 4 or 5 years. For me, it was an ultimate disrespect, slap in my face, and really to the body of work that I put out there on the football field. So At the end of the day, I think everybody realizes that I'm a person. I'm going to speak from my mind. I'm going to move to the beat of my own drum. But it's not to the point that I felt like, I was trying to big up or really outshine or be bigger than the Hall of Fame. I just felt like I was bringing some attention and some awareness to what a lot of guys have been saying for so many, many years. The process is flawed. Obviously, you look at now the disparity in white voters and black voters, then that needs to be addressed as well. For whatever reason, when it came for me to be inducted to the Hall of Fame, I think Jeremiah Trotter said that that's the first time that they've had an extensive meetings or gatherings or talks about someone getting into the Hall of Fame as it related to me. So that lets me know, man, that obviously, like I said, I'm a special individual. At the end of the day, I felt like I was doing what was best for me, my family. I wasn't going to let my family down. I talked to my family about, the possibility of going or not going. They were in full support, 100%. They were just as pissed as I was at the fact that, they just, like I said, they took, I guess, personal vendettas against me, whatever that may have been. Like I said, they went outside of the scope of the criteria in which guys are supposed to be nominated and inducted. And like I said, it was just a matter of just major disrespect, as it related to me. So I had those talks with the president, David Baker, about the steps that I was going to take leading up to my decision, and even the day that I had my ceremony. So I tried to be respectful as I could, and I did it the best way, and I did it my way.
Do you think that you will have open arms amongst the members when you go back? And will you go back? Will you go to Canton? Will you go to the ceremonies here in the future?
I don't have any desire to. I mean, some of those guys, they don't know me on a personal level. They just know about what they've heard of me. From a media portrayal standpoint or perception. If they don't like me because of that, then so be it. I don't owe them anything. They don't owe me anything. I don't, like I said, I wasn't raised that way to go out of my way to please anybody. Like I said, I know who I am as a person. I'm a very respectful person. Everything that I've gotten in life, it came at the expense of my hard work. So whether those guys, feel like, I disrespected them or the Hall of Fame, that's a personal problem. That's their problem. The guys that I've spoken to that are in the Hall of Fame, there are some guys that respect what I did. I got messages when it was happening, after it was happening, and they applaud me for my stance. And so, there are guys that have basically said if they feel like they're getting the run of the mill and they're being disrespected, they may take the same approach. It wasn't something that I felt like I wanted to or I needed to be the first to do it. I talked to a number of Hall of Famers that basically said that they were in my shoes and they were going to do the exact same thing. But when it came down to it, they didn't go through it. They didn't follow through with it. I think anybody that knows me, if I say that I'm gonna do something, I'm 99% probably sure that I'm gonna do it. So, like I said, it was something that I felt like I needed to do. Where we are as a country, I think you have to stand up for who you are and what you believe in. And like I said, I'm the first to do it. If it's history in the making or history made, then so be it.
Yeah. Was there at any time, because there were a couple of years where we were like, I can't believe they haven't put you in the hall, but was there a certain player or a certain place that went in where you were like, okay, this is a vendetta against me. How does this guy get in and I don't?
Well, yeah, I mean, number one was Marvin Harrison. His stats weren't as great as mine. But again, and he had some off the field issues that were questionable. When you talk about things that have, off the field, I've had none of those. If you want to factor or bring that into the equation, then I would have been a slam dunk because I was outspoken. That's not something. That's not a criteria in which you minimize a guy's character or minimize his chances of getting into the Hall of Fame. I'm one of those guys, like I said, I've never had any off the field issues. There are guys that have had far greater issues or problems off and on the field that have gotten in. But based on, like I said, the criteria, the mission statement of the Hall of Fame, I checked all those boxes.
Let's talk about your career. We'll go through some of the teams. Obviously, we started at San Francisco, 3rd round pick. You're playing behind, as you talked about, Jerry Rice, the GOAT, people call him. You had Steve Young as quarterback. What was that like? How do you, when you look back at your 49er years, what do you think?
I made the most of my opportunities. I had some great coaches that groomed me to be the receiver that I became. They basically, again, drafted and again, as coaches, that's what they're supposed to do. I had potential. That's what I was drafted. Basically, from obviously I was tall. I fit the mold of the 49er receivers. When we talk about 6'1", 6'2", and above, my physical attributes, obviously I think is what attracted me to them. You think about John Taylor, the receivers, Mike Sherrard, obviously J.J. Stokes being drafted a couple years or a year before, Jerry Rice. I fit that mold. And so the coaches that I had, number one, my first few years was Larry Kirksey, my position coach, Larry Kirksey. And then shortly after he was fired, George Stewart, who coached our special teams my first few years. And then they basically promoted him to the receiver position, head position coach. And he did the best job that he could for me, number one, to be who I was, learn under Jerry, learn under JJ. And I was a sponge. You know, I did what I could and should have been doing on and off the field as far as trying to perfect and being the best version of a receiver that I could be. Obviously, Jerry and JJ, they set the barometer, they set the standard in which, you know, receivers are supposed to play, how you run routes. I had a lot of development to do in my first couple of years to become the receiver that I became.
And it seems like, especially whether it was San Fran, Philly, Dallas, it ended badly. Why do you think it ended badly in San Fran, where it began? Why do you think it ended badly?
I think for a number of reasons. I think the coach at the time, Steve Mariucci, for whatever reason, young coach. Honestly, I think when I look back on it, he wanted to be the pulse of the team, and instead of just allowing the players to go out there and play and win games, it's almost like he wanted to be at the forefront of the success of the San Francisco 49ers. And it happens to a lot of young coaches that I think, you know, sometimes are not even qualified for the job. I mean, I think he was at Cal. It wasn't anything at Cal Berkeley. I don't think there was anything about his resume or his coaching ability at Cal Berkeley that qualified him to be the replacement for George Stewart, who is obviously a Hall of Fame Super Bowl coach. And you think about now, fast forward to now, you think about some of the young coaches that aren't qualified that are getting job opportunities ahead of some of these African-American coaches or what have you. I think that's what happened. We clashed a couple of times. There was a lot of, I think, systemic racism things that played out in that locker room during my tenure. Yes, I was aware of it. I just didn't say anything. Now that we're in a climate where these things are being talked about, yeah, I can really talk about some of those things now. Like I said, at the end of the day, anybody that knows me, I have no reason to lie. What I'm telling you is the same thing I'll tell Steve Mariucci right now if he was on the other side of this camera. But those are, like I said, there were some things that happened in that locker room and during the time that I played that definitely could have been deemed part of systemic racism. You can say a double standard, whatever the case may be. For me, some of those guys were a different color than I was, and they getting different treatment than I did. then for me, that's systemic racism.
You get traded to Philadelphia. You get this new contract at the time, and you have a monster, I would say, year and a half there in Philly. And you were the toast of the town. You doing touchdown celebrations, flapping the wings, all that kind of good stuff with Donovan McNabb and the Eagles. How would you describe your Philly years?
Bro, it was awesome. My first year there, aside from the injury that I had sustained late in the season, man, I was having a career, a season that any receiver could ever dream of. When I look back on what Jerry was able to obtain and achieve with quarterbacks like Steve Young and Joe Montana, for me to have now a quarterback in Donovan McNabb that could basically make all the throws. Like I said, I could run a go route and not have to slow down or adjust or anything like that. I could just play freely and basically utilize my skill set to the fullest. When I was in San Francisco, I had to basically tailor my game around obviously the offense that we were playing and obviously the quarterback that was back there. Jeff Garcia, and you think about Donovan McNabb, they're two different receivers. The common thing that they have is being able to extend plays with their feet. But when you think about arm strength, that's the big difference. That's the disparity between between the two. So Jeff didn't have he wasn't your typical pocket passer where he's going to sit back there and throw the ball 50, 60, 70 yards down the field. But Donovan, like I said, he had a hose of an arm. I realized that day one in training camp, and that's how honestly we started the season right out the gates. We played a preseason game. I went 81 yards on the first pass play. So that basically set the tone for the season. I've always wanted to be utilized to the best of my ability. When they traded Jerry to the Oakland Raiders, and I basically was the guy next up to fill his shoes, I wanted to put up Jerry-like numbers every year. I wanted to be able to exploit and take advantage of every opportunity that I could, with every game. There were games where I felt like, again, I wasn't utilized to the best of my ability. And I didn't complain. I didn't complain if we won, but if we lost and I didn't get used, or I didn't get the number of targets or touches or what have you, when we lost, that was a problem, because that's a number one receiver's responsibility is to, and especially for somebody with my confidence, is to take over games. I didn't have that backing in a head coach or even offensive coordinators to make that happen. I had defensive coordinators, I had defensive players that would come to me on the sidelines when I was in San Francisco and demand that I go tell coach to throw me the ball. That's how, trust me, bro, that's how bad it was. And everybody realized the talent that I had. Once I realized my skill set and I realized that I was a game changer, a playmaker, when I went to Philly, Andy Reid, by far the best coach that I've had in my career, he realized the talent that I possessed and he utilized me to the nth degree. So when you talk about the season that I had, and even the number of games that I played in a Philly uniform, I played in 21 games and had 20 touchdowns. So that lets you know, number one, the potency of our offense. Really the ability that I brought to the Philadelphia Eagles and that offense and that team, and really a tribute. Like I said, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did without a capable quarterback.
And so you talk, and listen, Andy Reid's got a Super Bowl now, and so we
Right.
already know he's an offensive genius. You talked about Donovan having this loaded cannon of an arm. What went wrong?
I think a lot of jealousy, a lot of envy. And this was brought to my attention by a number of players. There were people within the organization.
On Donovan?
Like I said, yeah. And like I said, I wasn't aware of it. Like I said, because I didn't think that was the problem. That was an issue. But clearly, he felt a certain way. How the fans, the city of Philly, brotherly love embraced me when I started scoring touchdowns, and they started, chanting my name, after touchdowns. Again, looking back on it, I guess it could have rubbed them the wrong way, but we were winning. We were succeeding. So I didn't feel like that should have been a reason to take it out on me or feel a certain way about me. Like I said, I'm not making this up. Like I said, I've heard this from a number of guys, and even people that questioned who I was and questioned my character based on how the media had portrayed me prior to coming to the organization and to the team. Guys, once they got around me to see the type of person I was, I had a couple of players that came to me and they apologized based on how they thought or how they perceived me. But once I'm on that field, once I'm in that locker room, trust me, bro, I was a good teammate. I'll take that to my grave, regardless of what anybody has to say.
So, obviously I know Donovan very well, and he's talked about this. He one of the points he's always brought up was your receiver doesn't make public comments about, I guess, Michael Irvin at one point made a comment that you guys talking about the Eagles would be undefeated if Brett Favre was the quarterback. And I guess at the time you had co-signed that.
Right. But again, if you listen to the transcript and you read the transcript, and based on how the media edited it and basically created headlines, it could look like I was throwing him under the bus.
Yeah.
The next day that happened, trust me, I had the team captains that pulled me aside. I know exactly. They pulled me into Rick Burkholder's, who was the head trainer. They pulled me into his office. They basically confronted me about that issue. And just as you mentioned, just as you disclosed it, they said they came at me with the same energy. I said, look, guys, read the transcript before you judge me. They both, Jeremiah Trotter and for sure, Brian Dawkins, they read that transcript and they understood the manner in which I answered, not how the media presented it. I didn't say it to throw him under the bus. And then they understood how, like I said, maybe I shouldn't have said it or whatever the case might be. But like I said, I feel confident in who I am to even then to say that it wasn't a slight on Donovan. It wasn't me taking a swipe. I see how it could look that way, but the context in which I answered, it had nothing to do with me comparing really Donovan's ability, his ability against versus Brett Favre's. And I stand by that wholeheartedly. Again, he took it the wrong way. The media spent it to make it look like I was taking another dig at Donovan or what have you. I addressed it with those team captains, and they understood where I was coming from. At the end of the day, that's again, if that's what he's hanging his hat on, then that's a personal problem. But as I said, if you look at the entirety of the transcript, you'll understand why I said what I said. And I basically, like I said, he didn't probably say, and nobody hasn't said, is I said, yeah, we're 4-3 based on that comment that you just mentioned, but we could have been easily 6-1. Donovan was hurt. The only game that we got our butts kicked was in Pittsburgh. And that's what I said, and I addressed that. So that wasn't me taking a swipe at him. I basically was based on the question that was asked, based on the assessment, based on Michael. Was it Michael Irvin's?
Michael Irvin.
Yeah, based on his comment on Graham Bensinger's question, I said, okay. I just basically played the scenario out in my head. I'm like, okay, yeah, I would agree with that assessment. So other than that, like I said, over the years, man, like I said, we've talked about it. I thought we had addressed it. We were cool with it. And then, some months ago, he came out, he did this this interview with one of the guys. And again, it made headlines again. And so after that, bro, it was like, I'm done with it. I'm cool. I mean, it is what it is. If you think if that's what you want to think, then go ahead. I can get petty. I can get, nasty if I want to be. At the end of the day, my body of work speaks for itself. Like I said, if he doesn't think that I'm worthy, I wasn't worthy of the contract that I was trying to get. I could bring up a number of things where he co-signed for Brian's contract when his was up. Me being the receiver and being who I am, he didn't co-sign for mine. There's a number of things that I could bring into the equation. I can bring up the performance that he had in the Super Bowl. Bro, I'm not petty like that. Like I said, I thought we had addressed that issue sometime maybe a couple years ago, and then, like I said, it surfaces again. So it just tells you that, like I said, obviously it's more of an issue with him than it is for me.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for you to break your leg, come back for the playoffs and the Super Bowl, have over 100 yards receiving in that game was tremendous. Do you believe it was his play, the reason why you guys didn't win that Super Bowl?
I mean, it was a culmination of everything. Obviously, you win as a team, you lose as a team. But again, you factor in the weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, and obviously I was getting a lot of attention based on whether I was going to play or wasn't going to play, how healthy I was going to be. And he addressed the media saying that they didn't need me. He didn't need me. But what have you. So these are some of the things, bro, like I said, I never said anything about. These are things that, like I said, I heard it and I just let it ride. But again, he wants to point out, that interview. And as I said, I addressed that. After that interview, I went into the coach's office. I spoke to him. Speaking of Coach Andy Reid, I explained to him what I meant. I asked him also to read the transcript. He asked me to apologize to the team. I did that, with a press conference. And then I think Donovan wanted a personal apology. I don't know if it was him and Andy Reid, but I addressed the team in my public apology in the press conference. And then, they wanted me to do another apology in front of the team to Donovan. And I just thought that was overkill. When I've addressed and basically apologized to the organization, my teammates within that press conference, that included Donovan himself. So I didn't feel like there needed to be any singling out of anybody or giving anybody a personal apology. And even when the team captain saw that and heard that, even when I did my public apology in the press conference, I had some notes, and he read it and he saw that, and in my notes, it had me apologizing personally to Donovan, and they agreed. They're like, no, take that out. You shouldn't have to do that. So I think when you look at me addressing my teammates, that's including him.
Let me ask you this. I asked him this question. We had him on the show. Do you think Donovan McNabb's a Hall of Famer?
And again, if his numbers are there, if they say so, then of course. Like I said, we understand what the criteria is. Like I said, if he fit the build and he checked those boxes according to who he's nominated with and that class, then like I said, there's a number of guys that they vote in every year. So again, if the numbers say that he's a Hall of Famer, then he's a Hall of Famer. I'm not on the voting committee. I've seen how critical they've been of me, and like I said, that's it.
Do you think, Terrell? Do you think you guys will ever make amends?
No, dude, I'm cool on that, bro. Like I said, I felt like at one point in time that we had addressed it. I thought we had moved on beyond it. And then, as I said, just again, well, I don't know, it was some months ago. I don't know, about 8 months. I don't know when it was, about 8 months ago or so. When all this stuff surfaced, and he did like some interview with a guy on some platform or what have you that he had, and it surfaced again. And so obviously, like I said, it's something personal with him. Like I said, bro, I'm done with. I'm cool. Anybody knows me, bro. And I say I'm cool, I'm done. I'm done. It ain't nothing he can say. There's not anything anybody can say to try to put us in the same room. I'm not going to change my stance on anything because obviously he's shown his true colors. I've had my thoughts all along, and not to beat a dead horse again, to have it resurface and him say the things that he said again. I'm done with it, bro. Like I said, people know who Donovan is. Like I said, some people are going to say it, not going to say it publicly. I've had people to talk, off the record. They realize and they know who Donovan is on the camera and off the camera. I've witnessed it. It is what it is. Bro, he's living his life. I'm living my life. There's nothing, like I said, I got my gold jacket. There's nothing, he can say or do anything about. As I said, Andy Reid asked me, gave me an opportunity to come to Philly. I appreciate our time. I'll always say, and even when back then, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did on the football field without him as a quarterback. I think when you ask him, and he's had reporters asking him about, did I make him a better quarterback? And he gave a lot of pushback on that. He didn't want to give me credit for that. When I said, like I said, you're a man. You can look at statistics, check out his statistics before and when and after I got there, and you'll see who made the big difference. When I played there in that uniform. So I don't sit here at the stand and try to toot my horn, but I'm very confident in my ability. Like I said, we could have played with Ty Detmer, Cord Detmer, or any quarterback. I still would have done the same. My ability didn't change with the uniforms that I played with. I played with heart. I played with passion. That's why Andy Reid wanted me to come there. That's why the city of brotherly love, that city loves me. They understand now over the years. I tried to address it, tried to bring attention and awareness to some of the things that were being said about me. And like I said, he was behind the scenes. I know, I'm pretty sure 99.9% why I didn't continue my season there with the Eagles was partly because of him. He didn't want me to come back. So that was that.
So as we end your Eagles career, we got to talk about you doing them sit-ups, man, in your driveway. When you look back on that, just that day, and you remember your agent, next question. Meanwhile, you doing what the heck went through your mind?
Man, it was just me making light of a situation. There was, again, I had Andy Reid and we had bumped, had a little disagreement there in, where were we in, Allentown.
Right.
For training camp.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we had bumped heads there. We had like a little altercation there, and he sent me home. And yeah, I just tried to make light of a situation. I didn't even realize media had started kind of basically setting up shop outside my home there in Morristown, New Jersey. Had somebody come knock at the door. I looked through the blinds, and I'm like, dude, I see all these trucks with the antennas up. They got their tripods. Everybody's setting up for like a press conference. Like, what is going on? And so obviously they had gotten the news that Andy had sent me home. Obviously being new to the area, being new to the team, where I lived wasn't a secret. And so yeah, they set up shop there, and so I just tried to make light of a situation because they literally just camped out in front of my yard. I went out there, I brought my ab bench out there, basically just tried to make fun of the idea that when I left, Andy Reid told me to stay in shape, work out until they get back from training camp. So that's why I came up. That's what came about with the ab bench.